I think for those of you who have been coming to the Dharma talks that Jeff and I have been giving at Bali Rica for the actually 5 years now, we're in the 5th season, you realize that we are very, very much into foundation. It really can be self-defeating to go into a study of something like Buddhism and try and get very esoteric to begin with, up into all kinds of interesting things with physics and tantra and that sort of thing, which is all great. It's great. But for real life, everyday living, you need to have a solid foundation of principles, of standards that you can stand on in a world that is changing, that is not permanent, that is extremely dualistic, so you are constantly having to rebalance yourself. And the way you can reach this kind of grounded stability is to really, really take full aim at understanding the Four Noble Truths. After that, you have Brahma Viharas, you have what we talked about, the laws, that sort of thing. But no one will dispute that the Buddha's foundational teaching is your foundation. And it begins with a rather obvious statement that is sometimes misunderstood, but we'll do that in a second. That statement is, all sentient beings experience suffering. Life is suffering. Now that sounds pretty down in the mouth and discouraging. But the Buddha was very much a realist. You remember, he's the guy who woke up. He didn't want to wake up to just cheap comfort, panaceas. He wanted to know, in very esoteric terms, the true nature of reality. And he felt that freedom came from knowing the truth. And the first thing he noticed, so he took a kind of scientific look at things, the first thing he noticed about the human condition was that all sentient beings suffer. Everyone suffers. Now the word for suffering that the Buddha used is not quite the same. It's not the same as Western use, English use, or French, or what have you, use of that word. It simply means dissatisfying. It means there is something not quite right going on. You're never quite comfortable. And to suffer in the terms of the Dharma is simply to want things to be different from the way they are. Anytime you want something to be different from the way it is, you're suffering. So that goes on. The description often used for that is that of a wagon with one wobbly wheel. So that as you're riding along in the wagon, there's a continuous one thing is just, it's off. Another one is sitting on a three-legged stool, and one of the legs is just a little bit shorter than the other two. So you can never quite get it stabilized. So suffering is inevitable in life. And the Buddha says, okay, let's take that as a given. We won't judge it as either good or bad, because it could be both. It may be the agent for growth. We'll get to that in the Eightfold Path. But suffering is something that most people would rather do without. Okay. And the definition for enlightenment which is the path's destination. If you're going to take the spiritual path of the Dharma, it is going to lead you towards enlightenment. And enlightenment is liberation from suffering. And what happens when you liberate from suffering? You experience the opposite of suffering, which is satisfaction and happiness. That is the Eastern definition of happiness is not some giddy thing. It's the liberation from all the suffering so that you have a sense of fulfillment and contentment and peace. You have peace of mind. So that's your destination, and you start with the fact, look it in the face, you suffer. So the next question is, if you're looking at it from a Buddhist point of view, the Buddha himself said, let's look at it like a doctor. Here's the symptom. We suffer. That's noble truth number one. Noble truth number two is the diagnosis. Why do we suffer? What's causing it? And he says, okay, here again we get into a lot of misunderstanding in the early days, because he says desire. And he doesn't mean desire that you're not ever supposed to desire anything, because you can't not desire. You do. What is actually meant is don't have craving, grasping, or clinging. These are your three main causes. And at the root of those are ignorance and delusion. So desire in the sense of craving, of not being able to get enough of something, needing it desperately. That's one cause of suffering. Grasping for things. You want to grab them, you want to hold on to them. Well, if nothing is permanent, there is no status quo. And you're just trying to get something that isn't going to last anyway. It's impermanent. So you're just wasting your energy to try and just get all the money, get all of this, get all the pleasure, get everything. That's going to cause you pain. A biggie is clinging. The biggie is clinging. We hold on to things that we need to let go of. And if we let go of many things, they stick around a lot longer than if we try and grasp them and hang on to them. The status quo again. If you can't, when you have expressions like "Make America Great Again," as if it were something that it never really was to begin with. It depends on how you want to interpret that. But if you don't want things to change, you're going to suffer, because things are going to change. So if you hang on to the past, if you hang on to ideas, if you won't let go of concepts, you're going to suffer as a result. So now you have the symptom, you have the diagnosis, and the prognosis is the third noble truth. And basically, we like to boil that down to a short saying: suffering is optional. It's optional in the sense, this is the part that tells you that you have choice, that you can overcome suffering, that you can be liberated from suffering, because you have the ability to choose. And they define, they being the Buddha and Buddhists, that they define two different things. There's pain and there's suffering. Pain is physical, it's unavoidable. If you get shot with an arrow, is the example they use, you're going to suffer pain. The suffering comes from what you do with that pain. Do you seek revenge? Do you ask questions? Do you get totally absorbed by who shot me? Why did they shoot me? How am I going to get even with them? I want their names, I want their heads. You get go. That's the suffering. That's psychological. Pain is physical. Suffering is psychological. So there's a bit of a pretty big difference there when you stop and think about it. Even in the West, we still differentiate legally pain and suffering. They're two separate things. Now there's a bit of a problem, which is a whole thing to talk about. The very fact that you can make the choice that will liberate you, that same choice can also cause you anxiety, because anytime you make a choice, you're doing an either or. I'm going to do this and not that, or I'm going to have this and not that. And sometimes that can be anxious. But overall, your ability to be liberated from suffering is the ability to exercise your free will. It's up to you. You can't play the blame game, and you can't play the victim. They don't work, because you're the one that made the choice. So now you've got the symptom, you've got the diagnosis, you've got the prognosis, the cure, and the last one, the Eightfold Path, the Fourth Noble Truth, is going to take you a lifetime to work on. It's every day, every way. It's what we do. It's how we live. It's the choices we make. It's absolutely pragmatic. It has everything to do with everything. It consists of 8 steps. They're divided into 3 sections. The first section is, or considered, the wisdom teachings. These involve intent. What is your intent? What do you intend to get from or give to any situation? And the second one is, what is your perspective? How are you looking at things? Because Buddha is known as being the philosophical father of relativity, because he said reality depends on the angle you're looking at something. Your reality depends on where you're standing. So someone else's reality might not be your reality. So you have to determine your perspective, because you could see the same thing as the guy standing next to you, and for you it would be beneficial, and for him it would be detrimental. It depends on how you each see it. It's your reality. It's your choice, and it's your intention. Okay? So those are the wisdom teachings. You can go on at length about those. The next 3 are the ethics. And they use the word right. The word right is really kind of, they say right intention, right view, right speech, right action, right livelihood, etc. The word right is like so many words in the translations over this thousands of years. It actually means skillful. It means something that works in harmony with other things, with everything. That it also, the same word is for virtuous. So it is something that is good, wholesome, and works. So anyway, so you have right action, right speech, right livelihood. Start with right speech. You've got several sections here. No harsh speech. Not just don't lie. And here I'll digress again. I'll back up a little bit. These are not commandments. These are called precepts. They don't say, thou shalt not lie. They say, thou shalt refrain from lying. Thou shalt refrain from stealing. Thou shalt refrain from this, that, or the other thing. um, because people do these things. And sometimes they do them for perfectly acceptable reasons. And so you're not being forced to something that cannot hold up. It has to be moderated and used properly. Okay? So, take my time here. Let's go back to there are 5 precepts. Okay? The first is refrain from killing. Refrain from taking life of any kind. This is a tricky one. Jesus taught the same thing. So how do you make it work? How do you deal with this? Buddhism has been known that it has never, ever started a war. It's never been a party to a war. Lately it has been, so it's deteriorating too. But refrain from killing. Refrain from taking that which is not freely given. In other words, don't steal. And that includes things like time and effort and anything else. Something that is not freely given, don't take it. So that's the second precept. The third precept is right speech. Well, actually the third precept is popped in there. It's refrain from sexual misconduct, which obviously is rape, incest, etc., etc. Okay, it has nothing to do with homosexuality. It's not even mentioned. Okay, so now we got don't kill, don't steal, don't misbehave, no adultery, that destroys the family and does great harm. Don't lie. Use right speech, but also that includes right speech includes just being mean. Don't say things that hurt other people. It's more than lying. And this is what we're seeing, an awfully bad, some very bad behavior that's very painful to other people. And the fifth precept is refrain from intoxicants. And there's a reason for this. Everything in Buddhism is involved with the mind and the emotions. Intoxicants cloud your mind and your emotions. So you refrain from those. Okay? So those are the 5 precepts. That's right action. Right livelihood is interesting. It says, don't be a butcher. Don't work in an abattoir. Unless you are extremely well trained, because it will damage your spirit if you deal and become totally comfortable with killing. So don't kill other things. Even for food, you can do it, but you don't, it's not a good livelihood. Don't engage in slavery. No selling of people. That's another non-right livelihood, etc. So there's several. Don't deal in intoxicants. Don't deal in poisons. Don't deal in warfare. Don't kill. Okay, be honest. All right. So that's that one. And then, so now that's the 3 of those. Did I get all 3 of them? Trying to think here as I go. Right livelihood, right speech, and right action. Yeah, okay. Now the last is right mindfulness. And here's where we have meditation. Right mindfulness involves right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness itself, which is meditation. It's all meditation. Okay, so the practice. So that's it for the 4 Noble Truths. And I would now do our second normal meditation that we do. We begin either with a mindfulness or a guided meditation, and we always end with a metta meditation. When we end with the metta meditation this time, please really try and be aware of how it makes you feel. It's a very, very emotional meditation. It has very deep roots into our own psyches. And if we actually embrace how it feels, it will keep opening us up. Right now, we're being asked to shut down. Metta meditation says you can open completely up. It doesn't matter if your body is shut down. We are not our bodies. With love, we open and open and open. And this is what we go back to the beginning when I said where we place our minds is the direction of our life. So if you make loving kindness or simple unconditional friendliness your ground position, what the Buddha calls a Brahma Vihara, a sublime dwelling, an elevated dwelling where our minds and hearts live, your life is going to be cast in a very, very positive direction. So there are 5 people in this particular meditation. The first is yourself. You always begin with yourself. You cannot give from an empty cup. So you work first on loving yourself, and then you move outward with an abundance, an overflow of that emotion. The second is someone you already love very, very much. The third is a neutral person. Someone that you maybe pass on the road and wave at, but you never really knew their name. You just know they live somewhere in your neighborhood. Or someone who waits on you. Someone with whom, you're familiar, but you're not intimate at all. The fourth is someone with whom you're in conflict. Someone that you either don't like or they don't like you. Someone you have a grudge against, living or dead. Might be somebody who's been gone for 20 years and you still can't let go of ill will. And so it's just someone with whom you're having a fight, whatever, somebody you're in conflict with. And the final one is expanded out to the whole world, to not only this world, but all other worlds. So each of these little well-wishings moves you out larger and larger and larger and larger and larger into space. And when you get all through, you kind of want to absorb the feelings that you get from that and try to carry them forward into your everyday life. So get into your meditative position, comfortable, balanced, centered, stable. Drop your shoulders, open your chest. To transition from outside and all this conversation to inside, just take a few deep breaths. Sharon will ring the chimes. To yourself, say to yourself, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, calm, and peaceful. May I be happy. Now bring to mind someone you love. Look at them, say their name to yourself, smile. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And now to your neutral person. If you don't know his or her name, simply address them as friend. And say to them, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And now we turn our attention to someone with whom we're in conflict. Take a moment. You've established feelings of goodwill. Continue them. Bring them to mind. Bring this person to mind. Look at them. Smile. And say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then with another deep breath or two, we release that person. We put our hands over our hearts, symbolically to embrace all sentient beings everywhere. And we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And now, when you're ready, release your hands, open your eyes, check how you feel. Know that the truth at the heart of all creation is love. It's the most powerful force in the world. And if you abide by no other dictate than to be kind, you will be okay no matter what happens in the world. So now, please put your palms together. Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. And bowing to the mysteries. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ruthie.